So Hasan Piker has gone back to sympathizing with terror organizations yet again. I guess his support for the Houthis wasn't enough, bringing a literal Houthi on his stream and encouraging and endorsing their behaviors of attacking civilian cargo ships and taking the crews hostage, who they haven't returned the crews, by the way. The Houthis still have a crew from one of those ships still being held hostage. And Hasan is the only person on the left who came out and vocally supported this. And it's crazy that Twitch literally has a terrorist sympathizer on their platform, but whatever. So he's taken it a step further and is now also saying he doesn't have a problem with Hezbollah. Now, I don't think I have to explain what he means by he doesn't have a problem. He's already come out and supported a terror organization, but he indirectly basically says, I don't have an issue with Hezbollah. You can't make this stuff up.
Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization that is also a part of the Lebanese parliament.
Do we like them or no?
I think as a resistance group, they're pretty successful against Israel. But everybody hates them. Like everybody in the region, a lot of people don't like them. Like
I like what you like.
I don't have an issue with them. Let's just say they're
I like what you like. Do we like them? Bro, if I'm on stream and you start talking about Hezbollah and all type of shit sound crazy, I'm not. I ain't saying shit first and foremost, because you never look. I ain't saying nothing. But look, the way this man portrays Hezbollah is so dishonest, and it's always funny to me when like leftists who support terror organizations are like, you need to educate yourself. Y'all need to realize you're literally the equivalent of MAGA. Multiple times on this channel, I have shown y'all evidence of Hezbollah hiding cruise missiles in people's homes. I've shown you evidence of them hiding bombs in people's homes, and you just deny it. You are basically MAGA. That's the only reason why part of the reason why I make these videos is to cleanse you guys from my audience. Because I can't with people who like are shown evidence and then deny it. It's not I just don't like that. He calls Hezbollah a resistance group. First and foremost, people love to pull the thing of, oh, Hezbollah wouldn't exist if Israel hadn't invaded Lebanon. Then they end the conversation there. And again, as I told y'all multiple times, this conflict it's complex, it's complicated. Neither side looks like the victim or the perpetrator. Both sides constantly engage in crazy activity where it's like, well, fuck, how do you even solve this? Hezbollah is not a resistance group, and I'll tell you why it's not. Hezbollah exists as a result of the Israeli occupation of Lebanon. The question is, why was Israel even in Lebanon? In both occasions in which Israel invaded Lebanon, they were attacked by a terror organization that was eventually acknowledged as the spokespeople of the Palestinians, eventually. But at the time, a terror organization called the PLO, who had been expelled from Jordan after trying to overthrow the Jordanian king and committing terror attacks in which they landed commercial airline planes, detonated them after taking the international passengers hostage. The king of Jordan said, oh, hell nah, and went to war with them, expelled them, and they went to Lebanon and set up shop there illegally and staged attacks against Israel from southern Lebanon illegally, to which then Israel both times had to invade Lebanon to deal with this group, in which they're also doing special operations in Lebanon right now. They're striking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon right now. It's the same shit for the third time. Understand and realize that the way people portray this stuff to you is not often what it is. And you can look, nothing I've said to you is not backed up by verifiable evidence. Everything I've said to you, you can look up yourself. I'm not leading you astray. Nor am I some like Zionist or some like big Israel guy. I frankly don't really care about either like Israel, Lebanon. I don't give a f. All I care about is how do we keep the region stable, and how do we make sure that there's enough balance and stability to where we don't have to constantly look over our shoulder as planet Earth wondering what Israel and Iran and Yemen and all. I'm tired of that. I'm frankly, I'm not happy with what's going on over there right now. The reality is Supporting Hezbollah is particularly insane. It's ridiculously insane. This is an organization whose leader literally got on camera and talked about condemning homosexuals to death. Literally talked about condemning people who have sex outside of marriage to death. That's the kind of organization we're talking about. They're, well, number one, historically, they are not a resistance movement. So that argument is done. Number two, they're not some progressive organization that's simply there to resist Israel. No, they're very much an oppressive organization dedicated toward ruining the lives of not just Israelis, but even people living in their own territory who just want to live their lives in peace. Lebanese people who just want to live their lives in peace. Hezbollah is not just some group dedicated to fighting Israel. It is far more than that. And Hasan knows that. He's far from stupid. He knows what he's doing. But he purposefully portrays a terror organization, an organization that is regressive, an organization that dedicates itself toward the destruction of Israel and the United States. He portrays that organization as a resistance movement. It is not a resistance movement. It is a terror organization that is an offshoot of the very ideology and tactics used by the PLO. You are not a resistance movement if your organization comes about as a result of the military invasion of a nation you attacked first. Hezbollah is the ideological inheritor of the terrorist phase of the PLO because they eventually became acknowledged as the spokespeople and the voice and the leaders of the Palestinians. But they were very much a terror organization. It's just a fact. And Hezbollah has inherited that same bullshit. I've already shown evidence of them hiding weapons in people's homes. We already know they've hosted meetings in apartment buildings. Hasan Nasrallah apparently was like hosting meetings under like civilian infrastructure and everything. And if it weren't true, how in the fuck is Israel finding them and blowing them up? Sorry, I don't know what people want me to like engage in fantasy with you. I don't engage in fantasy with MAGA. At least MAGA are my countrymen. At least those are literally the people that I've known and grown up with. Hezbollah, I don't know these. How the fuck would I entertain misinformation peddled by Hezbollah to Westerners when I don't even accept MAGA misinformation? For what? How? Why? How? The reality is Hezbollah and the Houthis are not helping the situation in Gaza. The reality is October 7th was an attack that deserved a military response. Then people say, well, don't you understand history didn't start on October 7th? The vast majority of the history of the Israeli Palestinian war does not portray Israel as this unreasonable nation state. In fact, it's the Arabs and Palestinians continuously declaring war over and over and over and over again and losing over and over and over again. That is the majority of what this war is. Then they move the argument, oh, well, Israel's a settler colonial state. America is too. What, you don't feel any guilt because the natives here aren't trying to kill you? Do they need to try to kill you before you start thinking about the fact that you live on stolen land? Come the f*** on. Furthermore, the United States, Canada, Australia, a lot of these nation states are, even nation states in Latin America that are mostly populated by white Europeans, are settler colonial states. Should they all be dissolved? Should we bring about total economic mayhem for the entire world in the name of radical progressivism? Israel's not going anywhere. Frankly, it just never is. They're probably nuclear armed. Why are we even entertaining such an unrealistic scenario? What we should be trying to do is force Israel to make concessions. Settlements in the West Bank? Gotta stop. This radical conservative party, gotta go. Netanyahu and them, gotta go. The harsh restrictions of goods coming into the Gaza Strip, gotta go. But in order for this shit to work, terror organizations cannot be in leadership. Because the reality is, Hamas killing 1,200 Israelis and taking a bunch of hostages, you don't respond to that kind of shit with negotiations. Because now you're enabling and reinforcing terror attacks. It's not going to work that way. Attacking civilian cargo ships in the Red Sea and making it hard for people in Sudan to receive the aid that they need to live good lives is not helping the situation. All you're really doing is telling the global community, oh, hell no. Anytime there's some kind of an attack on Israel at the hands of Hamas, these two organizations will disrupt the global order, the peace we try to maintain as best we can. Because if people think that currently today, like people are like, oh, peace. This is literally the most peaceful era in human history. We've had wars, but in comparison to the past, this is the most peaceful era in human history. Hezbollah and the Houthis have dedicated themselves toward ruining life for as many surrounding peoples as possible in order to get what they want in Gaza. That's not going to work. That's never going to happen, and it's unacceptable. To be trying to lower the standard of living for people in North Africa, East Africa, the Middle East, and all over the Mediterranean over Gaza. It don't work like that. It just doesn't. It doesn't. Shooting rockets at Israel since October 8th, talking about Hezbollah here, shooting rockets at Israel for a year straight, of course you got bombed. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? It's an act of war. You join in with Hamas in attacking Israel. You send rockets over. Of course you got blown the fuck up. Furthermore, this portrayal that like Hezbollah is this representation of the Lebanese people are not like a monolith. There's Christians, there's Sunnis. These two demographics aren't big fans of Hezbollah. There are even Shia people who aren't big fans of Hezbollah. A lot of them want Hezbollah gone because they've dragged Lebanon into a war that they frankly don't want anything to do with. A war that they, number two, cannot win. He sat there and said they're successful in resisting Israel. They're not. They're getting their asses whooped as we speak right now. As I'm literally recording this video, Israel is conducting special operations currently in Lebanon. In Hezbollah-controlled territory in Lebanon, Israel is conducting raids right now. They're whooping their asses. They're whooping the asses of the Houthis in Yemen right now. Terror organizations are not going to bring about peace in the Middle East. And this is why I keep saying the international community needs to start putting pressure, Gaza, to get rid of Hamas, putting pressure on Israel to stop the colonization of the West Bank. But in order for Israel and the global community to be able to move forward in proper negotiations with the Palestinian people, these Iranian-backed proxies whose sole existence is terrorism, they gotta go. They absolutely have to go because there's no negotiation. You can't negotiate with terror organizations with unrealistic goals. It'd be one thing if they were terrorists, but their goals are completely divorced from reality. The destruction of Israel, that's never gonna happen. Even Arab states don't want the destruction of Israel. So like, these groups cannot exist. Supporting these groups is not helping the Palestinian people. It's not. I can just promise you that. No serious world leader looks at Hezbollah and the Houthis and says, you know, blocking up global trade in response to the people who started the war, losing said war, really, really rational, really, really intelligent. Definitely the precedent we want to set in today's day and age, especially in lieu of the illegal invasion of Ukraine done by Russia. We definitely want more buffoonery happening in the world today. Absolutely not. You're not helping the Palestinian people by supporting Hezbollah and the Houthis. You're just not. You're just not. Hezbollah is not a fucking resistance group. The Houthis are definitely not a resistance group. They got exposed for taking aid and feeding themselves with it while letting the people of Yemen fucking starve. Don't know what's going on with that. They also aren't very charitable to minority groups and LGBTQ people. Not sure what's going on with that either. The reality is Israel's not perfect. People think I'm some kind of like pro-Israel person. I'm just telling y'all the reality is Israel's not going anywhere. So we have to proceed with like realistic ideas for what the future is. I'm not delusional. I'm not I'm not, you know, sitting here saying the Palestinians don't have legitimate grievances. The problem is y'all think that negotiations, which is just the only way out of this, negotiations can be done with terror organizations. No, they can't. A lot of y'all seem to think that this entire conflict has just been the equivalent of like the English settling America. It's not. The English had zero intention of living peacefully with the natives. The intent was always to just wipe them the fuck out. There have been multiple attempts by Israel to say, hey, we're not leaving, but we'll live here in peace with you guys if you're willing to accept. And the Arabs for a long time kept saying no. And for a point in time, I get it. I get the 48 war. Like, fuck, if we can get these niggas up out of here now, let's do it. They lost though. And they just kept trying, kept losing. We're now in a nuclear world in which constant destabilization in the Middle East is not beneficial. It's not of any benefit to anybody. Iran using these proxy groups to constantly cause chaos. It's not beneficial. It's not helpful. If there were reasonable expectations and demands, this shit would be so much more effective. So much more. But Hezbollah and the Houthis and Iran and Hamas don't have reasonable expectations. They want the dissolution of the state of Israel. That's not a reasonable expectation. If they were calling for the decolonization of the West Bank, cool. If they were calling for less restrictions on Gaza, cool. If they were completely not engaging in terror attacks and not trying to fucking, oppress minority groups in their own countries, cool. But they're not. These are not organizations that you legitimize and support. You don't. And the fact that I have to explain this to progressives and liberals is concerning. It really is, that this stuff has to be explained to y'all. But a lot of you guys are the left-wing version of MAGA. No matter how much evidence is presented to you that these organizations are fucking crazy and are terrorists and should not be negotiated with and are not helping the situation, you won't listen. So at the end of the day, Hezbollah is not a resistance group. Never has been, never will be. The Houthis are not a resistance group. You're not going to get realistic demands from the Houthis. You're not going to get realistic demands from Hamas. You're not going to get realistic demands from Hezbollah. These organizations have to be destroyed. It's going to be upon us, the international community, though, to put the pressure on Israel. Like, okay, your enemies might have been crazy, but you're not completely innocent here. You got some shit going on that you need to change, you need to fix. But Israel is an organization, right? Israel is an entity that we can work with and talk to and compel to what we want. We can't get these radical Islamic organizations to listen to reason. We just can't. I don't care what any of y'all say. It's not possible. Same thing with Iran. Radical Islamic organizations dedicated toward terror are far beyond reasoning. The only answer, the only response is literally what's happening now, which is warfare. So, this progressive support for terror organizations is beyond my understanding. And you know what it's rooted in? It's really rooted in this unbelievably childish understanding of history, of colonizer versus colonized, and white versus brown, and oppressor versus oppressed. A lot of y'all talking this shit, again, live in colonized land. You live in the United States. You live in Canada. You live in Australia. You live on stolen land. There are plenty of people living on reservations here in the States who might want your house. Are you planning on giving it up? You're probably not. Do Native Americans have to start barging into your house and killing you and flying rockets at you for you to start thinking about the fact that you live on stolen land? The reality is the United States of America is not going anywhere, and Israel's not going anywhere either. That's why I keep emphasizing realistic demands for the change that we want to see in the relationship between Israel and the Palestinians. Realistic demands. People want to view this through the lens of intersectionality and these far left, socio-political dynamics that kind of work within a country like the United States. But when you're talking about geopolitical conflicts involving multiple factions and nations and war, it's not the same. It doesn't work the exact same way. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. We need a realistic solution rooted in reality, rooted in facts, divorced from radical ideology, in which these two sides can live in peace. But in order to do that, terror organizations cannot be the ones who we're negotiating with. That can't happen. Furthermore, we don't fucking associate with and endorse organizations who persecute minority groups. Jews can't live peacefully in Hezbollah territory, in Hamas territory, in Houthi territory. They cannot. Arabs can live in Israel. Vice versa can't happen. Homosexuals can live in Israel. Vice versa can't happen. We're not supposed to be backing and supporting bullshit like this. That's not what we do as progressives. But it is what it is. People are going to continue to defend this shit no matter what evidence I present. People are going to continue to defend the bullshit.